Hello everyone and welcome to Bridget's Speech Kitchen. Today I will be showing you how to make pesto, and I'll show you some variations on the basic pesto recipe, and we'll also talk about problem solving. Before we go on, make sure to subscribe. Okay, so here are the ingredients. We have some fresh basil, pine nuts, Parmesan cheese, olive oil, garlic, lemon, salt and pepper. So now you see me putting the basil into the blender. I left the stems on, but you can take them off if you prefer. So now I'm going to put in the pine nuts or pinolas and the Parmesan cheese as well. So you can see them there in my blender. I'm making pasta to go along with bread with pesto. So I'm just sprinkling in the cheese. I eyeball it. I like a lot of cheese in mine, but it's really up to your preference. And then here is my lemon. I'm going to slice and then juice. So the reason I'm squeezing the lemon into a bowl is to avoid getting any seeds into my pesto. If I just juiced it directly into the blender, there's a chance you'll get the seeds in there, and we don't want that. So I recommend squeezing your lemon into a separate bowl, scooping out the seeds, and then pouring your lemon juice into the blender. So now you'll see me pour the lemon juice into the blender with the other ingredients. Then I'm going to use some fresh garlic. And this is just a close-up of salt and pepper. Don't forget those. They're your main seasonings. And then the olive oil. This is extra virgin olive oil from Trader Joe's, but you can use a regular olive oil as well. This I also eyeball. You need enough in your blender in order for the blender to actually start blending the pesto. So you see me, I'm blending, I believe on low speed, and you might have to go in with a spatula or a spoon to scrape the sides and add more olive oil until it comes to a pesto texture that you like. Okay, here we go. So on my blender, this is the stir setting. You can see it's going pretty well in there, mixing it all up, getting everything chopped up finely. Here's what it looks like on the inside from the top. You can tell it's still working through one of those garlic cloves. So now you can see it's all blended up. It looks pretty good. I'm just going to taste it. So you'll have put your salt, your pepper, and all of your other ingredients into your pesto and blended it up. But I recommend tasting it, see if you need more seasoning, more lemon juice, but as you can tell, I'm pretty happy with it. So we'll move on. So now I'm just spooning the pesto onto some sourdough bread. This is a sourdough individual boule loaf from Trader Joe's, and this is just a nice topping for the bread that will go alongside my pasta. But you can use this pesto as a pasta sauce on top of chicken, on top of fish, as a dipping sauce. Really, there's so many uses for pesto, and this is just one. Hi everyone, so today is a different day than when I made the pesto, but I wanted to talk about problem solving for when you don't have ingredients for a recipe, and then how problem solving is something that speech therapists work on in sessions. So the base ingredients for the pesto that I made were basil, and that was fresh basil, olive oil, lemon juice, Parmesan cheese, pine nuts, garlic, salt, and pepper. So that's the base recipe, and I showed you a traditional pesto. But now I want to talk about, if you don't have those ingredients, what you could substitute for. So I'm gonna have you join me in my pantry here. Okay, so this is one of the cupboards with some different ingredients in it. So the first ingredient I want to talk about is actually back here, so olive oil. So olive oil is, I would say, the most important ingredient in pesto. There really isn't a switch for this. Olive oil, it has excellent flavor and it blends really well. I guess if you absolutely had to use a different type of oil, I would probably say sunflower oil, which I have right next to the olive oil. And then I used fresh garlic. Here's the bulb of garlic, and you can tell where I pulled the cloves from. I used fresh garlic, but if you don't have access to fresh garlic, you could use the jarred version. It's preserved in olive oil. That's an option, or you could use garlic powder. So now we're gonna go to the other part of my pantry to talk about some other ingredients you could switch out. Okay, so in the traditional recipe, we used pine nuts, or their Italian name are pignolias. If I didn't say that right, I'm sorry. But this is what they look like. Now, pine nuts, they can be expensive. They're one of the more expensive nuts. So if you don't have the budget for them, you can't find them, or just don't have them for any reason, another nut you could use is almonds. You honestly really could use any nut. If you have a nut allergy or just don't want to put nuts in the pesto, that's totally fine. You could substitute the nuts for seeds like sunflower seeds or sesame seeds, or you could just leave it out. The pesto won't suffer because it doesn't have nuts in it. And then for the acid, I used lemon juice. If you don't have lemon juice, maybe you live in a place where fresh produce isn't always available, maybe you just don't happen to have lemon juice, whatever the reason is, a lot of grocery stores have small bottles of lemon juice all ready to go for you. I would say that's the next best thing to fresh lemon juice. Or you can use a type of vinegar. So you could use white wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, rice wine vinegar. The main reason we want a vinegar or lemon juice is for that acid component. So it just sort of lifts the whole pesto as a sauce. And then let me grab the Parmesan, just in my fridge right here. Okay, so finally, Parmesan. So this is already grated for me. It's in usually the spice section. It's not refrigerated when you first get it, and then you refrigerate it after opening. So you could also use a block of Parmesan or Parmesan in a baggie. That's usually with the other cheeses. If you have a dairy allergy or just don't want to use cheese, that's totally okay too. You could substitute nutritional yeast, which I personally haven't had, but apparently it has sort of a cheesy taste to it. Or again, you could just leave the cheese out. You could use any sort of hard, crumbly cheese. The basil, if you don't have fresh basil, you could use any sort of soft, leafy herb. So you could use parsley. I personally love cilantro. You could use spring onions, dill, or you can use something like spinach, kale, arugula, just a fresh green. Lots of problem solving in this recipe, so cooking is a great place to work on problem solving skills because stuff happens in the kitchen, right? Maybe we accidentally touch the hot stove. We don't know that the stove is hot. Or maybe we grab the handle of a pan without really thinking about, oh, is it hot? And then, you can imagine what happens there. So I feel like cooking, the kitchen is a great place to work on problem-solving skills. Be mindful, obviously, of your client's age and their abilities, if they can use knives, if they can be around a hot stove. Use your best judgment, but I think the kitchen is a great place to work on problem-solving skills. And the reason we work on problem solving is that it's one of the executive functions. So there's this whole category in speech and language. The big umbrella is cognition, and then we have executive functions, and problem solving is one of those executive functions. So we problem solve all the time, every day, even multiple times a day. We can't decide what to wear. We problem solve. We can't figure out what to eat. We problem solve. Our computer isn't working optimally. We problem solve. So any activity you select when you're working on problem solving, whether it's with a child or an adult, think about what interests they have, what sort of activities of daily living are happening in their lives, and figure out how to incorporate problem solving into those activities. There's all kinds of natural opportunities to problem solve, so get creative with it. Keep your patient's interests in mind, and I'm sure you can think of something to target problem solving. Before I end our video, I did want to show you the inspiration book. It's a cookbook for the pesto and how to swap out ingredients in the pesto. It is this book here. It's called Pesto, the Modern Mother Sauce. It is by Leslie Lennox. She talks about the base recipe, so the ratio of ingredients and the base ingredients. And then this whole book is just filled with recipes that switch up ingredients in the base pesto to make it something new and different. So that is the inspiration for the pesto and this video, and problem solving when you don't have certain ingredients for a traditional pesto. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, see you later. Bye.